Hello fellow storytellers, this is Mark Graham with the Source of Story YouTube channel and Runes for Writers. In this fourth installment of this series, we are continuing our study of the runes themselves, their meaning, their sounds, their interpretation, and a little bit of background on how they came to be. So let's get started. First up is Eiwhaz or Eiwhaz. This literally means yew, as in the yew tree, and its sound value is, I won't take too much time, but its sound value is somewhat distinct. It doesn't really have an analog or an expression in modern English. It's more of a French E sound or an umlaut sound, so that cross between an E and a U, which you get in the, as you're pronouncing yew tree, that sound appears, and that's the value that it has. So if you're doing transliterations, trying to transliterate something into the runes, this character likely will not show up. But it does mean the yew tree, and it stands for transformation. This rune is not reversible. This is, in the previous video, we had 3 of the 4 runes, which I mentioned were generally seen as negative or unfortunate or dangerous runes. This rune, typically by most other rune experts, is seen in that light, that this transformation is coming for you. As with Elhaz, which was purification, Eiwhaz, the transformation can be welcome or not. It can be graciously received or not. Fact of the matter is the transformation is coming. This is usually involuntary change, and it can be radical transformation, even so far as death and possibly rebirth. So it's an interesting phenomenon with the yew tree, and I suppose with some of its relatives. The aspen, I believe, does this as well, in that the growth is not from seeds so much as it is from branching out underground and new trees cropping up from the roots that have sprung out underground. So you may have a tree feet or yards away from the parent, but they are connected by this common root. And the yew tree in particular, its branches will actually dive underground. And you see that in the shape of this rune, where you have a root and a branch coming in, and with the yew tree, the branches will go into the earth, will crawl through the earth and come up elsewhere. They may even come up within the tree itself. The yew tree will die and rot from the inside out. And so it's not uncommon for a new tree to spring up within the hollow core of the old, of the parent, or perhaps of a separate tree. And so that's where we get this sense of death and rebirth, of renewal, of possibly even reincarnation. So when this rune shows up in a casting, it means something is coming to an end, and something new will be coming out of that. What that looks like is dependent on your story, on your characters. How well that's received, also dependent upon your character. They may fight tooth and nail against this. It's happening. So again, with my personal outlook on life, when you see these inevitabilities coming, tuck up and roll with it, because it's happening. You can try to fight, you can try to struggle, and sometimes there's value in that. There are lessons to be had, but ultimately this change, this transformation is happening. So find a way to work with that and grow through it. Now again, depending on where this falls in your rune casting and its particular associations within the spread, within the rune casting, will help you put nuance to this and help you flesh out what exactly this means. But that is the meaning of Eiwhaz, the rune of involuntary and irrevocable transformation. Next up, we have Perthro. Perthro is the P sound, and it means a lot cup or a dice cup. And you see that somewhat in the shape of this rune as a dice cup on its side, having just cast out the lots or the dice. The ancient Norse were inveterate gamblers. Tacitus, in his Germania, tells of the passion that the Germanic tribesmen had for gambling, so much so that they would, if they'd lost everything else, their money, their clothing, their farms, they would wager up to their own freedom, and they would enslave themselves for that one last bet. So that's the sense we get out of this, is that in that gambling there's that randomness, that chance. There's also a sense in this of fortune, of fate, and the Norse idea and ideal of Orlog. Orlog is more than simply fate or chance. It is not random circumstance. It really has its closest cousin would be in the Vedic or East Indian notion of dharma. And again, dharma is not so much fatalistic, but it is really the notion of a life purpose. So there's the idea that when Perthro is upright, this is everything going for you. You are on track. You are doing what you came here to do. Everything is going your way. You're on a lucky streak at the table, and everything, your number is always coming up in a good way. That the character is dialed in, is in tune with her life purpose, with her fate, her dharma, her orlog, that she is, whatever she came into this world or into this story to do, she is doing. And everything, the cards are stacked, the dice are loaded, and everything is lined up to help her achieve whatever it is that she came here to do. So reversed, we've had a string of irreversible runes, and now we've got one that can be reversed again. And reversed, this rune means quite the opposite of that. It means bad luck, ill fortune. In a certain sense, it can mean that in this case, we have a sense of karma as opposed to dharma, that the orlog has been achieved, has been fulfilled, that purpose has come, and now it's time to break with all the things that were supporting that. And no matter how hard you try, nothing is going to bring that back. You can see this in the sense of we'll say a needy contractor. If you have a contract for a home, the builder will show up day after day. He will fulfill his contract. When the house is built, he turns over the keys and he's gone. He's out of your life. He may want to come back for coffee and donuts in the morning, but he has no business being here any longer. No matter how hard he knocks on the door, go away. Your contract is complete. The house is now mine. And this can be seen a little bit more harshly in terms of a marriage. When a marriage is complete and that contract is finished and voided, it is time to move on. I won't say reconciliation is not possible, but that particular episode and chapter in the character's life has been completed. And no matter how hard they try, no matter how many rolls of the dice they take, they are not going to win. They are not going to reclaim that. So, it could mean ill luck. It can also mean a completion, a termination, and a radical split in or with the past period, the past chapter of their lives. So that is Perthro, the rune of fortune for good or ill. Next up is Elhaz. This rune means elk, and the European elk was much more akin to the North American moose than what we generally think of as elk. I've missed the sound values on a number of these. They're fairly intuitive. They show up next to the rune. This one stands for the letter Z, or the Z sound, and is somewhat unique in that the sound value actually comes at the end of the rune name. But Elhaz does have that, or Eiwhaz sometimes. It has that Z sound. It is equated to the European elk, which we would think of as a moose. So we see in this a notion of protection. The moose or the European elk have these huge antlers, which we see here expressed in the shape of the rune. And while the elk are not particularly territorial, they are very protective of their young. It's not unknown for an elk or even a moose to take down a predator if it is threatening an offspring. Either with the antlers or with their hooves, they've been known to kill wolves, to kill bears even. So they are fierce, protective creatures, and we see this in this rune. There's also a sense, another interpretation of this is the shaman. And among the tribal cultures, you have a notion, and again, we see this reflected in the shape of the rune, of the shaman standing, arms spread out, arms held out wide, and standing between the gods or the forces of nature and the tribe. So there is still that sense of protection, but now personified in the person of the shaman. And this could also represent a mentor for your character. We also might see in this a much more modern interpretation, but if we see the shape of this rune as an antenna array, there may be a sense of attunement or alignment with divine guidance and protection. So reversed, we're going to see the opposite of this. If upright, this is protection, then reversed, we may see this as vulnerability, as weakness, as openness to attack. The boundaries that, or the means that we have had to protect us, the walls, the shelter, or the protective person standing between the character and danger, those are gone. So you have a sense of impending attack. You have a sense of invasion, even. There could also be a sense of abandonment, that those who were there to protect you are not, or even worse, those who stood in a position of protection have turned that against you, against the character. That ultimate betrayal of a person in a position of trust has misused and abused that trust and caused great harm. This is a really powerful rune in either aspect. When it's reversed, you've got an opportunity, again, which we saw this in a previous rune, in Anzuj. There's a rune that stands for a great good, and when it's reversed, the harm that comes from that, because upright was such a powerful and good force for the character, for what it stands for, what it signifies, that the reversal of this rune can be just devastating and destroying. It's not simply an absence, but a flipping of the natural order onto its head. The way things ought to be, not only are not, they're being used for purposes that they were never intended, and they're completely unnatural and unjust. Wow, didn't mean to get so up on a soapbox with that one, but that's the power of these runes when you really dig into them and allow your creativity to go and find new meanings, new ways of expression or counter expression for each of these runes. So that is Elhaz, the rune of protection, and that is the 15th rune, the 7th in the second 8. And our final rune for this episode is Sowilo. And Sowilo has that S sound. It literally means sun, the sun up in the sky. In the ancient Norse, ancient Germanic languages, the root of this is shared with both the word for the sun, soul, and soul, that innermost part of our being. The sun was seen by the ancients as the soul of, it was recognized by them as the soul, the center, the core of being of our planetary system. We think that the Earth had always been seen by the ancients as the center, and everything revolved around us. But the very name and the correlation of soul, the planet, and soul, that innermost being, suggests that it was understood that everything actually did revolve around the sun way back in the day. So we see this also as energy, the energy that the sun gives out that brings life and makes life possible upon the entire earth. There's a sense of success that comes from this. There's a sense of motivation when that sun comes up in the morning, or you get that first warm day of spring after a cold winter. There's just that sense of empowerment, of activation, of motivation, that you want to go out to harness that energy and to make things happen. Now, this rune also cannot be reversed. So along with Gebo, there's a sense of, again, in a dramatic storytelling, there's somewhat of an absence of conflict here. It's all goodness and motivation and energy and empowerment. So, and that cannot be reversed. So again, depending on where this falls within the rune casting, its relation to the other runes, its orientation in the rune casting where it wants to show up, and we'll get into this in detail in some later videos. There's still room for interpretation. Generally, when this shows up, it's again a very benefic rune. It heralds success and achievement, and very good things to happen. So that, my friends, is Sowilo, the 16th rune. We are 2/3 of the way through. We have completed our second 8. We've got 2 more videos coming up. And if you're enjoying these, please like, share, subscribe to this channel, to the Source of Story channel, and tell your writer friends about this. Let's spread the word on this. If you're really engaged and would like to further support our efforts here, please take a look at our crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo. We are looking to get this system into mass production with cards, tiles, dice, and actually developing a full book to elaborate on the runes and on the various rune castings and their interpretations. So your support will not only get a set of the runes, or possibly a complete set of the runes and the book into your hands, it will also help me fund a larger scale production run so that we can make these available for sale to to many, many more writers, and to get the word out and get this tool, this valuable tool for creativity and storytelling, into the hands, make it available for as many writers and storytellers as possible. I encourage you also, please, to go to my website, mark-graham.com. Subscribe to my newsletter so I can keep you apprised of activities around the runes, but also my own writing and news happening in my own creative endeavors. So, my friends, fellow storytellers, I am Mark Graham with the Source of Story YouTube channel and Runes for Writers. Thank you for your time and attention, and I look forward to hearing your story with the runes.